Back on lectures, we're up to lecture number 4 now, where we're looking at the ICT worker. We're looking at the sorts of things they might do on their day-to-day job, their responsibilities, their work ethic, how they should be dressing, all those sorts of really nuts and bolts sorts of things about being a worker in the IT world. Again, this links directly to the syllabus as part of our HSC examinable unit, section number 4, the ICT worker. And we start with the scope. What is it that an ICT worker needs to do? We call this the scope of ICT work. Essentially, the ICT worker has work tasks, things that they need to do on a day-to-day basis. They need to provide a service to people, and that service is assisting people with their technology issues. In order to do this, they need to have a knowledge of the operational environment that they're working in. So they need to know who their customers are and the sorts of jobs that their customers are doing. They also need to know what company they're working for, the products that they use, and the services that that company provides. If they know that information as a knowledge foundation, they are then able to provide the appropriate service to their customers. Now, when we think of companies, let's say we picked Microsoft, for example. Microsoft's customers are the people that are buying the software, Microsoft Office, for example, the Windows operating system, and all of their other different software applications and hardware applications. That is Microsoft's customers. Within Microsoft, there is an ICT service desk. The ICT service desk, their customers are the people that work for Microsoft because they're providing the service to the workers. They're not providing the service necessarily to the public. It's an internal customer base. Okay, so that's what you've got to keep in mind when we're talking about who the customers are in these scenarios. We then need to talk about employability skills. There are a list of skills that the Australian government has determined an ICT worker needs if they want to be successful in their industry. And they are listed on the screen. You can see them there. We're going to start with communication. The first one, communicating. Why is communication important? Well, you're going to be communicating verbally a lot with your clients and your colleagues in the IT department, where you're sharing ideas, how you can resolve issues, but also troubleshooting with your clients. You're also going to be writing down some formal correspondence to people, so sometimes emailing back or service tickets and things like that. And you need to understand the organizational standards. So what style of fonts do they need to use, what formats do you need to use, etc. You also need to be able to listen carefully to what people have said, to dissect what they're saying, comprehend it, and then identify a solution for their problem. And then there's this last concept in communication where you need to share instruction manuals and information documents with the people you work with. Okay? This might be with other staff in your IT team, or it might even be with the people that you are assisting, your clients. So that's the first one, communication. If we talk about what are the most important skills, when I'm looking for an employee, communication is definitely at the top there. Teamwork. Teamwork is where I say to myself, okay, you cannot do your job well alone. You're going to be working so hard if you think you can. When you work in a team environment, everyone gets involved, everyone shares the load, and you can have people that are experts in a range of different areas. We use teamwork to make sure that we give the best possible service to our customers, okay, the people that need our help. And so in that case, it might be that I have someone on my team that is an expert on the software applications, and I have someone who's an expert on hardware, and I have someone who's an expert on networking. So then when a customer issue comes in, we look at it, what sort of issue it is, and we target it to the person who is an expert in that field to make sure that they get the best possible service in the fastest possible manner. We also think about teamwork in the sense that those experts also provide mentoring and training on the job, informal training to the other people they work with, where they say, oh, next time that issue comes through, this is how I fix it. So then you're expanding your own skill set by sharing skills with the other people that you work with in your team. Now, we also think in teamwork, you need to be aware that because of the Anti-Discrimination Act, okay, and the whole concept of not being able to discriminate against people, you need to be able to work with people, but different types of people. People from different ages, people from different genders, race, religion, political persuasions, people with disabilities, etc. It's part of life, it's part of our world that we need to do this. And And so teamwork skills isn't just about working with people, but it's working with people that are different to you. One of the scariest things I ever had to do in my career was I took a new job as a boss of a cinema company, and I was there. I was around about 23 years old, and my team that worked for me, the oldest person in that team was 50 plus years old. The youngest person in that team was 30 plus years old. So I was in there as a boss, and I had people much, much older than me with much greater life experience than me that I was now responsible for leading. And it can be very challenging to manage those sorts of teams. But if you don't discriminate because of age, if you really take people based on their merit and the skills they have and harness what they've got and appreciate what they've got, the whole idea of age ends up not being an issue. Some of my greatest colleagues that I work with are old enough to be my dad. I've worked with someone that's old enough to be my granddad for many years before. But age was never an issue because we both had that equal relationship where we treated each other fairly based on the fact that we knew how to do our jobs well, and we used that as the foundation for our team and the work that we did. Third one down, is problem solving. Another great one. And this is really important when we talk about these 21st century skills you might have heard a lot. If you can't problem solve, you're going to find it hard to keep a job. Because if it's a job that needs problem solving, it almost requires a human. If it doesn't need any problem solving processes to happen, then it can be automated and a robot can probably do it for you. So we think about problem solving, your ability to listen to problems, come up with potential solutions, form possible solutions, and then troubleshoot which is the most appropriate, and then resolve the issue. And if it doesn't work, to complete a re-loop of that troubleshooting cycle until you're able to solve the problem. Initiative and enterprise is one that is a little bit harder to develop, but it's still a great skill to have. And this is where you're able to apply what you've learnt previously into new situations. It's your ability to always want to improve yourself and your skill set, and always wanting to learn something new and take the initiative to develop solutions to new problems. Quite often this is you working outside of your specific job in an area that no one is currently filling. Planning and organising is a fairly basic one. You need to be able to keep yourself organised. You need to plan your days, your work schedules, and you need to be able to adjust when things come up. And that links in very well to self-management, where we talk about quite often in IT, you're working alone. There's lots of IT jobs where people work remotely. Despite working in a team, they do that in an online sense. So just being able to manage yourself to keep on the job even when no one's watching. Being able to make sure you're meeting your time and priorities in an appropriate manner, and understanding what work is expected and how you're going to do that. We also recommend CPD. CPD is continual professional development. It's a responsibility we all have in our jobs, but we summarize this under the heading of learning. And this is where we talk about going out of your way to learn new things to improve your own work. So I know in the course of the last 12 months, I've done at least 5 different courses, some of them big courses, some of them small, informal courses, where I've been trying to develop my own skills, because the nature of my job changes regularly. So I need to make sure that I'm adapting to keep up with it. And lastly, if you're going to work in an ICT department, it's a no-brainer that you need to be able to use technology. Not just use technology to do your job, but to monitor how technology itself is working, be able to use the technology to communicate in different ways, but also to organize data and share that information with the appropriate people. Now, an IT person, we talk about what do you wear. You certainly don't wear casual. Casual is what you wear on the weekends. Tracksuit pants, jeans, t-shirts, anything like that, it's a no-go. You don't wear casual to work as an IT worker unless you are in one of those really hip and funky companies that specifically tell you to wear casual. Most IT people are expected to wear business casual, which is sort of a mix between things that you would wear on a weekend and things that you would wear if you're going to a wedding. Okay, formal attire, wearing a suit jacket, suit pants, leather shoes, a suit, a tie every day for gents, and formal dresses and stockings and heels for women. Look, we usually don't need to dress that formally, okay? So we usually talk about this idea of a midway point. And I guess if we're thinking about it, we think shirts. No matter what, if you're at work, you should be wearing a collar. That's the first thing. The second thing, it should be tucked in. Now, if you don't have a shirt with a collar that can be tucked in, if you think it looks odd in that sense, then it is not formal enough to wear to work. Okay? So the other thing to keep in mind, if you're tucking your shirt in, there should be a belt there. Okay? So we're talking about, you probably are listening to this saying, no, that sounds really formal. That's actually business casual. Okay? A button-up shirt with no tie, totally acceptable. Okay? Polo shirts, totally acceptable. When we talk about the fabric, they're all totally fine, but you would normally pick something that would need to be ironed. If it needs to be ironed, it's usually good enough to wear to work. Okay? Normally, you wouldn't have any images or printing, so you're not going to have like a JJ's shirt that has an image of Riverdale High on it or anything like that. Plain or a pattern that's fairly simple. Okay? These sorts of things are the right way to go. Now, those shirt suggestions I have both male and female suggestions. Same goes for pants. Now, pants should be trousers, corduroy pants, khakis, dress pants, suit pants, all of those things are appropriate. Jeans are never appropriate for business casual. Could also be skirts, whether they be longer or shorter. So when I talk about shorter, I mean potentially at the knees, shouldn't really be shorter than that. But when I talk longer, I mean could be all the way down to your ankles. So that's where we're sitting with skirts. Could be full length or partial. If you're wearing pants, they should go to the top of your shoe, maybe slightly longer. They shouldn't be wearing three-quarter pants or anything odd like that. They shouldn't be baggy. They shouldn't be bunched up. They shouldn't be oversized. They shouldn't be super tight either. Okay, you sort of need to be sitting in the middle way. And you need to be wearing some plain colors. So browns, whites, grays, blacks, all totally fine. Definitely not those army camouflage pants. And you certainly wouldn't be wearing any bright colors, so bright yellow, bright purples, bright reds, etc. Stick with the really plain ones. Jumpers and jackets, okay, same thing. If you're wearing a collared shirt and you wear a jumper, it should be a V-neck. Usually works best for you, otherwise it looks a little bit odd. You might wear a jacket. You can wear a formal suit jacket over the top of an informal or a business casual set to dress it up a little bit, and that would totally work. And then your shoes should be basically plain leather shoes with a pair of socks, nice and plain colors. You certainly wouldn't be wearing thongs, sandals, sand shoes, anything like that. It should always be a leather shoe. Okay? Things that you should definitely avoid if you're dressing business casual: sneakers, sandals, thongs, open-toed shoes, t-shirts, sweatshirts, sporting jackets or jumpers, anything that has pictures or logos or slogans. Shorts shouldn't be worn, jeans, anything really tight, and also anything that's too loose, particularly if you're going to be doing any physical work where it could get caught in machinery. I've got a video here. I'm going to share it with you, but this is a video specifically around what is the role of a tech support person. I'd like you to go back and watch that video. It's going to be really helpful for the questions we've got at the end. But lastly, I've got some information sources. And again, I'm going to link these into our Canvas module so you can have a look through them. But there are places that we go to get our information. You need to know what sort of information to look out for to understand what your job is. And the first thing you need to know is, what is your job description? Your job description typically comes on your job ad, the one that you applied for. It usually tells you roughly what you're going to be doing. Once you get hired, you usually get given a role or a duty statement, which is much more specific about the exact tasks that you are expected to do in your job. We then have organizational charts, which are hierarchy charts that show you the chain of command in your company, who your boss is, who their boss is. We call these line managers. And then we have instructional and product manuals, so documents from our vendors that tell us how to use their hardware or their software. Okay? Those 4 documents I spoke about are standard information sources that every single ICT worker should be familiar with. And that actually applies to many industries as well. We also then have our internet and intranet system. So internet being that external network that we use, Google, etc. Intranet, similar style, but internal access only. Other places you get information is from your manager, your team leader, your supervisors, but also the people you work with, your colleagues. So there are plenty of places we get our information from, and you're expected to be able to know which sources to go to, which sources are reliable, and how to access those sources and that information when it is required. So look, that's the end of these slides. That's been the ICT Worker. I hope that's been helpful for you. Again, you should have been writing notes along the way. Go back, make sure you've updated your notes there. And then there's a couple questions for you on the Canvas module. Good luck with those, and I look forward to seeing you for our next lecture. Thanks.